Hi, everybody. This is DearMamaSal, and we're live on a Friday lunchtime, which means it's time for us to be talking about coping with feelings. And, I always like to talk about this because, we all get completely different weeks. Like last week, you can be feeling great, and by the next week, you're feeling stressed or you're feeling overwhelmed or you're feeling whatever. So, this is why every Friday we talk about our feelings and how to cope with them slightly better if possible. And, it's amazing how if you keep understanding that life will throw things at you, but it is our responsibility to keep our feelings um, under control. Well, it's very important to feel feelings. I say that time and time again. Don't stuff them down. If you're angry, then you need to deal with that. And the way to deal with anger, of course, is to have a safe person that you can vent to. And when I say a safe person, that isn't the person that's made you that you think made you angry, because actually you made yourself angry and from what you heard. But the whole point about these things is that we take accountability for our own feelings, not that other people did it to us. And that is what we do a lot of work on Fridays. So, very big welcome to you all. And today, just so you know, we're going to be talking about the topic's going to be whose problem is it? And the reason I wanted to talk about this is because, as some of you know, I'm in the middle of a big renovation at my home. And things have started to move, and they've started to move after 4 months. I've been out of my house for 4 months, living in this very pretty rented apartment. But now things are starting to move at the home. And therefore, it is time for everything speeding up, right? Everybody wants to get it done and get me back so they can get paid. Well, guess what? Nobody bothered in the 4 months I've been sitting here twiddling my thumbs. Nobody bothered to contact me and find out what did I or did I not want. So suddenly, all in the same week, I'm being asked to make decisions about paint, colors. I'm being asked to make decisions about all sorts of things. Hi, Sharon. Good to see you. And Jody. Sharon, what a pleasure. We don't normally see you at lunchtime on a Friday, so that's awesome. And so, if you can imagine, suddenly everybody's business is now my supposed stress level, but I'm not doing that. And what I thought I'd do is talk to you today a little bit more about how do I do that? How do I not get their stress as my stress? Because you see, it's not my stress, right? The fact they haven't bothered to talk to me in 4 months is not my problem. It's theirs. I was here. They knew how to get hold of me. And with the exception of one of the contractors that has been trying to get decisions from me all the time, and the worst thing was that one person that wanted, that gave me the options and wanted me to do what I wanted to do. The problem was I couldn't tell him the answer because until I had a decision on what sort of shower I was going to put in, I wouldn't know how much tile I needed to put in, if that makes sense. Because if I had a completely new shower that was tiled, then that would be one measurement. But if I got a slot-in shower, a prefabricated shower that they just push in, obviously I would need less tile. So it has been a week of that. So I would ask you, for those of you who are already here, those of you who might be watching in the background, big welcome to you all. I hope you've had a wonderful week. And if you had to describe your week in one word, how would you describe it? I always like to start with that. And while you guys are typing that, I just wanted to make sure everybody knows that some of the feelings that we deal with every single week are the feelings of joy, of excitement, of surprise, of sadness, of anger, of disgust, of contempt, and fear. These are all things that come to us every single week, and whether we acknowledge them or not. And the other thing is that the more that we can acknowledge our feelings, actually, the less power they have over us. And that's the important thing. Obviously, there were a couple of moments, and I'll talk about that. There are a couple of moments this week where, I let their stress, their feelings of it's got to be done now, it's got to be done now. And I just literally went, yeah, that's what they think. What do I know? I'll talk about that. But it's not my problem, it's theirs. The fact they did not contact me in the last 4 months is not my problem. And I understand that contractors will now blame me for the delays, but I have a paper trail. So I know when they contacted me. In fact, I actually had to beg them to contact me. Oops. Sorry about that. But I literally, I think, in some cases, had to beg them to contact me. So it was really difficult. Before we get into the main part, I just wanted to say, I believe this week we do have Beth's twins, I believe, have a birthday this week. I think on the 17th. That's Victoria and Catherine. They're grown. But I believe it's their birthday this week. And of course, it's Valentine's Day on Sunday. So we'll be talking more about that, obviously, on Sunday. But if any of you have any plans for Valentine's Day, it's always lovely to hear them. So let me know. I wanted to talk in the main part today about guilt, the guilt tripping, people guilt tripping you, because it happens to us all the time. And I thought we'd start off with just talking about what is it? What is the official definition of the guilt? And what they say is that you experience guilt when you feel bad about doing something wrong or committing some sort of offense. Now that's real or imagined, and that's why I want to talk about it. And guilt is the state of having committed an offense. You know, you're guilty if, right? It is the opposite of innocence. So if I feel guilty, I'm going to sound guilty, and I'm also going to act in an offensive way. But if I feel innocent, I might end up coming from a place of anger because I'm frustrated. But I don't have to, all right? I can just choose to smile and go, yep, let it be. So Jodi's saying that her week was all about tying up loose ends, finishing up a few sewing projects that have been waiting to get done. Yes, I think we've all got those projects that are waiting to get done. And by the way, how many of you actually did do a project this winter? And I don't know what the weather's like where you are, but we've got a really big cold snap that's coming in, and we're expecting more snow and all sorts of things. So it's going to be a chilly sort of week for us this week. How many of you have either heard or quoted this to somebody, that their lack of planning, or let me just give the proper quote, lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on mine? So what you find happens is people that have not planned things out properly or assumed that they knew what they needed to do and didn't check it out, they will suddenly, if you put an obstacle in their way, they suddenly get very upset because that doesn't meet with their little plan that they've got. Well, again, think about that their lack of planning on their part does not constitute stress on mine, all right? And funny enough, one of the things that came up for me this week, if you can imagine this, was about paint colors. And so I talked about paint colors, and then I came up with a couple of colors that I wanted. And you know, when they mixed one up, it turned out to be a taupe color. Well, you and I both know that if the swatch is gray and the paint tin ends up being taupe, it means somebody did something wrong. I wasn't going to talk about that. I just said, you know the color I want, make your own best decision as how the mix needs to go so that I get roughly that color. You know, quite honestly, I'm looking for a color a bit darker than this, a gray color that I have here. so that, the white borders and everything will look really great about it. And then the contrast color will be a paler shade of gray, as they say, a whiter shade of pale. Oh, Jody's saying they're expecting 18 inches of snow in the next 6 days. Hi, Jonas. How are you doing? Always a pleasure to see you here. Oh, you're going to leave for a class. Okay. But I will look forward to seeing you this evening. It's always a pleasure to see you here, Jonas. You always have such great input. And to me, the classic guilt trip is this one about, people not planning things properly. And then, I don't know about you, people who didn't do what they were meant to do and then expect you to pick up the slack. How many of you have been, in the middle of that one, where people have told you, oh, yes, I'm going to do that. And then at the last minute, they come to you and they say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't have time. And now suddenly, whose problem is it? And I always remember that when I had staff in my life, staff members would come to me and say, Sal, we got a problem. And I go, no. We do not have a problem, but do feel free to tell me about yours. Because what happens is people want to have you as the part of the problem so that they haven't got the guilt of it. Does that make sense? And so I never let them do that to me. I'd always laugh and I go, yeah, I know you want we to have a problem, but we don't. At the moment, you have one. And until I take on your problem, it's yours, not mine. So tell me about your problem and let me see what we can do about it. Does that make sense? And I wonder if you have any examples from your life where people, are pushing guilt and blame onto you for something. And if you've got that going on, feel free to talk about it. Jonas is saying, thank you. I love seeing you guys too. I love this community. You're like a virtual family. That's what we're here for, Jonas, as you know. I've always said that DearMamaSal is your extended family, the one you can actually talk to, and the one that hopefully will help you when you've got stuff going on. It is very interesting that I think what's so wonderful about DearMamaSal, it's not about me. I'm just the talking bit. It's a group of people who get together 3 times a week and talk about life. Jody's saying, I always get a chuckle out of that, Sal. It's a great outlook. We don't have a problem, but tell me about yours. Yes, and I'm going to do a lot of those today, Jody, of turning those sort of people trying to guilt you comments and turning them back, because that's the boundary, right? You can try offloading this onto me, but it's not mine to take, it's yours. So when people, try to do that, you do not have to feel guilty, but most of us end up doing that. But you may choose to help them out. Do you understand that life, as I've said time and time again, life is about choices we make. And you can choose to take on guilt, or you can choose to put up the barriers, if you like, the boundaries. Now, the first thing, as I said, the first surprise that I had is that the bathroom installers never thought that I might want to upgrade my bathroom. Now, I don't know about you, but I would have thought if you are in the reno business, and you're doing an insurance claim, this is just my thinking, the one thing you would want is an upsell if you could get it. You know what I mean? That, yeah, you got this bathroom, but I wondered whether you'd like to have something, nicer the second time around. To me, that is an obvious time to upsell anybody. And yet it didn't happen. And hi, Jeannie, good to see you. Happy anniversary. I don't think I've got that in the database, that it's your anniversary. Is it today? Well, you enjoy your dinner, and what a wonderful time to have got married so close to Valentine's Day. That is beautiful. Well, I hope you have a wonderful dinner. And we'll look forward to talking to you maybe on Sunday, and you enjoy your anniversary. I wanted to give you an example from my life that I always remember. I used to be part of a team of people that put together a leadership weekend once a year, big event. And the interesting thing is, funny enough, it's where I met Benji. He was a participant. But we'd take all year planning it, all year. And we had, fairly decent sized committee, and then we had subcommittees of people and so forth. But the one thing I knew, and I was on the executive committee of that, I was chair of it, and then continued to sit on the executive committee. One thing I always knew was in the last couple of weeks, without a doubt, stuff was going to hit the fan. People who had said they were going to get things done would not have got things done, and it would end up in chaos. You see, that's human nature, isn't it? So part of me has been expecting this chaos to be coming at me ahead of time. And so that's my experience of life, all right, is that that's what people do. It's human nature. Now, there's some people who don't do that. Jody, our admin, would be one of them. All right. She plans things really, really well and, sorts things out and, tries to make sure she has all her ducks in a row. I'm pretty sure that some of you also might do that. And that's a great way of reducing your stress. All right, is to be prepared. But then we've got other people who like to fly by the seat of their pants. I understand that. I used to be that person big time. But the funny thing was, I knew, instinctively, I knew if we were at this stage of the Renos, that they were going to start panicking any minute now because they hadn't contacted me. And so when the guy eventually did say to me, oh, you'd like to change the shower stall? I went, yep, I'd like to not have a small one. I want one I can walk in. I want you to think about possibly me trying to get in with a walker. So I want something that I can get into with a walker. And therefore, I want a 60-inch shower stall, not a 32. And then, being who I am, and I'm certain Jodie's laughing because she won't be surprised, but I then set 3 different pictures that I had taken screen grabs of, saying, I want something that looks something like this. And I'd like some quotes on how to do that. And then also, what if I put one of those pre-made fiberglass inserts in? I'd like a quote on that as well. So I had it all ready. I just needed somebody to ask me about it. It's like, and I also said, and I would like it to be a sliding glass door, if possible, rather than an open glass door. Why? Because if you happen to be trying to get in with a walker, it's much easier to slide open a door than it is to have to back up to open a door. Does that make sense to everybody? I'm thinking, what might I need in the next 10 years? Maybe, hopefully 15, of being independent. And so I was ready. And then I said, and I want grab bars. I want to make sure that the tub area is safe for an older person, because that's what I am. And so my experience of having done a lot of stress management at the last minute of organizing big events, reminded me that even if they hadn't contacted me yet, I knew that all the bells and whistles and all the stuff was going to end up being thrown at me, and I would be asked to make instant decisions. The other thing I did is I am sitting, I'm not talking to the guy in front of me because of the pandemic. And so what I did is in each case, I had, for example, when I was talking wall colors, I had a picture of this is the sort of color I would like. And quite honestly, as long as it's roughly that color, I don't mind. And this is the contrast color I would like. And then there was the issue of, which walls in my house did I want to have painted the dark color, and which ones did I want to have the lighter color? So guess what? I quickly drew a diagram. I did this earlier. Drew a diagram of my house, and I just highlighted the walls that I wanted to be dark. It's paint, you know. So even if they make a mistake, I can get it redone. That's the way I'm looking at it. And I was also really confused because at the same time, if you could imagine my feeling of shock when they now gave me the list of things they want to destroy because they don't, the things that they don't want to put back in the house because smoke gets into certain things. It gets into plastic and it gets into fibers and stuff in a funny way. But what confused me was they didn't save my foam mattress. Or they did, so, yeah, I have a foam mattress on my bed, or had. But for some reason, they didn't want to destroy that. But the mattress that I had that was beautifully already covered in plastic and protected from the move, I never unpacked it. That one, they saved. Weird. I was very confused by that. By the way, if any of you have any feelings that you'd like to discuss this week, just make sure you let me know so that I can move on to that as soon as we've had the base discussion. So, I like this quote. Well, this one, you got to smile a bit, right? Get the idea of this. I'm not suggesting you actually say this to somebody, but get the idea of it. It's what I call a Sharon quote. And what's a Sharon quote? Well, Sharon has a wicked sense of humor. So Sharon, how about this one? Oh, really? You know what that sounds like? It sounds like it's not my problem. Because it's amazing how much people want to give you their problem and how they want you to feel guilty because of things that they haven't done. So again, remember my story about my stuff. No, we don't have a problem. Always remember, it's not your problem unless you choose to take it on. All right? And if you choose to take it on, don't complain about it. All right? Be accountable. Yeah, I chose to be part of this, so therefore, I'm not going to guilt you out for giving it to me because you didn't. I chose to take it on. Does that make sense to everybody? Because I think that happens a lot where we get involved in somebody else's problem and then we beat them up with it. And I don't know about you, but I don't think that's right. For accountable people, and that's what we try to be. And if you want to know the ultimate in guilt trippers, I guess it would have to be mothers. And I found that the problem with most mothers is that they forget they're dealing with adults. And that guilt tripping works really well with children, although it shouldn't. And, part of me goes that I think that children today are being taught how not to, take on those guilt trips and what to say in return. And I've got a few examples for you that I wanted to discuss with you. Because I do believe that half of our problem is that we don't have the words. We don't know how to hand it back. Oh, Jonas is saying, you're preaching to the choir, Mama Sal. And Jody's saying, did they have an explanation as to why one mattress was salvageable and the other one wasn't? If not, can someone provide that info? It's bizarre without the backstory. I did ask. I haven't had a reply yet. Probably they're confused themselves. And the reason I'm confused is all the bedding had to be destroyed. Bedding, the bedding, the pillows, everything else had to be destroyed. Why not the mattress? It was foam, and that's a plastic base. And if they say anything that if pillows have to be destroyed, then surely the mattress has to be destroyed as well. I just wondered, before we go on, I wanted to just say one moment, and I'm just going to digress for a second, because last weekend obviously was Super Bowl weekend. And I wondered if I was the only one that was absolutely enthralled with the guy doing the sign language for the national anthem and everything. What a great personality. You know, he impressed me so much, and he filled me full of such feelings of joy. I don't think there have been many sign language people that I went, wow, he is so good. And, you know, I really felt that I could read sign language just by watching him, because his whole demeanor, was one of such joy, and it was infectious. And what I did is I actually looked up to find out who he was. And what I discovered was that he was a deaf rap singer. Isn't that interesting? And so the reason he was so great at performance was because he was a performer. You know, his job was not sign language. Sign language happened to be something he just did because he's deaf. But he, you know, was a natural born performer. And boy, did that come across. It was just so exciting to watch him. And of course, you know, as a football fan on Super Bowl, I also found great joy in, you know, I'm not a great, funny enough, Tom Brady fan. I know that sounds strange, but ever since that Ballgate thing, you know, my respect for him went down a bit. But I really did want to root for him, because I thought it was incredible that at his age, you know, that he should take another team to the Super Bowl, you know, and it sort of really told the Patriots, well, hello, you didn't think I had another Super Bowl in me. Well, I just proved to you as you sit, watch me at home. And I took another team to the Super Bowl. I don't know why I enjoyed that. That's not very nice of me, is it? But I did. So the question that I have is, have you ever had anybody guilt trip you? And if so, what did it feel like? Yeah, Jonas is saying we'll never see another like Tom Brady. You know, I thought the same of Namath, and I thought the same of, who was the Broncos guy? I want to say that, and Jonas, he's more than making history, he has made history. And, you know, the interesting, Elway, thank you, Jody. You know, it's just like they were, in their day, they were absolutely legends. And yet, with all due respect, yes, and it's like saying Wayne Gretzky in hockey. Obviously, I'm very biased towards him. He's Canadian born. So, you know, but it's like, you know, when you watch these legends, it really is amazing. And you just, Jody was kind enough to send me a little clip of the moment that Brady saw his family and the joy on his face. And you think about it, you know, they've sort of had to put up with him being a world-class athlete for so long. And yet here he is. And, you know, if you think about it, he actually doesn't need the money, you know. He does it because he loves the game. All right. And as some of us know, you know, the older you get, your bones and your muscles don't like stuff nearly as much as they did when you were younger. So I'm really touched at his absolute dedication to his sport. So I wanted to get into what it's like to have somebody try and put a guilt trip on you. The first thing I notice, and I don't know about you guys, but when somebody's trying to put a guilt trip on you, you can start to feel quite strong emotions coming up. And I guess I want to ask you, what do you feel like when somebody's trying to guilt trip you? What are the feelings that you feel? For me, I start feeling confused. It's like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And then I get a little angry. And then I take a breath and go, then I remember, this is not my circus. This is not my monkey. This is not about me. But I try not to go back in anger, because what do we know? If they are trying to lay the guilt trip on you, it means that they're frustrated. If you turn it around and think about it, when people start to blame you for something, there's a good reason, right? They don't want to take accountability for it. And so can you imagine how many of those contractors, are busy going, well, that silly old woman is now starting to make decisions about what she wants in her house. Well, hello, the fact you never asked me is not my problem. I had it all ready for the time when somebody, and by the way, I kept asking people, please, could you give me, the contractors' names so I can get hold of them. Anyway. So for you, what is it like? How can you feel that somebody's trying to guilt trip you? Anybody got any input on that? Have you got any examples? I thought about one that comes up quite a bit. When you're really excited that you've done something, because maybe you've just worked out how to do something for the first time. And then somebody turns around to you and says, oh, when I was your age, I'd already done that twice. Now, what's the underlying message? The underlying message is, you're stupid. You're not as smart as I am. And yet, in that moment, they take away all your joy. So how would you respond to somebody who said that to you? Oh, when I was your age, I'd already done that twice. Or, some comment like that. And while you're typing, let me read what Jonas has said here. Some of the advertisers during Brady's first Super Bowl, AOL, Blockbuster, Radio Shack, Circuit City, Compass, Sears, Yahoo, VoiceStream, Wireless, and Gateway Computers. Isn't it scary how few of those are still around? When you think about it, it's like it was so long ago. Blockbuster. Yeah, those were the days. We were talking about that last week, I think. And that's how long he's been playing football. That's amazing. Thanks, Jonas. I always love it when you bring up those things. Well, how about that you've worked really hard to lose weight? And then somebody turns around and says, oh, when I decided to lose weight, I lost twice as much in half the time. What are they really saying? Right? Think about that. When you hear that, instead of reacting to it, think to yourself, what are they really saying? And that is the thing to check it out. I'm a great believer. Don't presume you understand what they're trying to do. Ask them. And so if somebody said to me, well, Sal, you've been on that Wii Fit now for, 3 months and you still haven't lost weight, so it doesn't work. And I managed to lose, 20 pounds just by doing X, Y, and Z. Now, what are they telling me? They're giving me their experience and their opinion, and they could be 100% correct. But what are they really doing is that they are really saying that I'm not doing it properly or whatever, And so I would check and I would say to them, hey, I hear what you're saying, but I want to make sure I understand what you're getting at. Are you trying to say that I'm not doing this properly or up to your standard? Or do you think that I am fudging the figures? What is it you're really getting at? And what you'll find is most people don't like that. They like to give you that sort of passive-aggressive hit, but they don't want to explain it. Why? Because they get called on their stuff. Okay, Jody's saying, how about when somebody is guilt-tripping you and along with the point they're trying to make, they bring up a dozen unresolved things from years ago as well? That triggers me. Okay, Jody, so we're talking here, there's tsunami of guilt. All right? Now that we're on this, let me also hit you with this, and this. And so what I would do with that one, Jody, if you are capable, and, it all takes practice, we know that, is go, well, you just hit me with 5 little guilt trips there. I'd call it for what it is. So the one that we were talking about is point A, and let's deal with that one first. And if we have time in our lives to sort out the other ones, and obviously they need to get sorted out because you keep bringing them back. Hi, Leo, good to see you. And happy Valentine's weekend to you as well. So what I would do is say, obviously you still have a problem with those issues because you keep bringing them up. So maybe we should schedule some time to talk about them at another time. The one I want to talk about at the moment is this one. Makes sense, Jody? I would get some control over it, if possible. Because the chances that they're bringing up all the other ones is those are ones that they are still angry about because they didn't get their way. All right. And so from my experience, one at a time, let's deal with them one at a time. And I would really be an active listener. When I say active listener, I'll go, okay, I want to make sure I got those points right. And I want to make sure I care about this. So I want to write them down so that we can discuss them over the next few times when we talk. And you'll be amazed how many people will say, oh, don't bother. You're going, well, it was obviously important enough that you hit me with them today. And I would use those words because they did. And therefore, they're things that we do need to talk about. Now, again, the truth of this is, from my experience, that people who run away from it and don't want to discuss it, why do people do that? Why do people hit you with a guilt trip and then run away from it? From your experience, you're smart people. You've lived a long life. So why do people do that? And I'd like to say that if you can come from a place of incredible compassion, the reason people lash out is because they are not winning, all right? Or they feel that you've attacked them. And so what I would ask you to do is call it for what it is, right? So let's take the weight thing. I definitely need to go back to that person and say, hey, I hear you lost more than the weight that I've lost in half the time. Are we the same age? Because, I know that age has a factor. Do we have the same medical history? Is the reason that I put on weight the same reason why you put on weight? I don't know. So I need to check that out because otherwise we're not playing on a level playing field. Jonas is saying, I think I have an example. This week I opened up to a friend about a deep wound from my childhood. I thought they were going to be understanding and compassionate and listen to my story, but instead she basically just said, you don't have to tell me. My experience was just as bad as yours, which made me feel quite invalidated and dismissed. There you go, Jonas. Thank you. And that's what I want you. And Jonas, I have to say that, you do a great job of not taking things superficially. You really do talk about what you feel. And you have such great words around what you feel. That's, it always amazes me when you come in and talk about it. All right. And you have no problem in saying, I felt quite invalidated and dismissed. Did you tell her that? That is my question. Did you say, something, ouch, when you said that? I felt quite invalidated and dismissed. It is my belief that most people do not realize what they're doing, Jonas. They do not realize what they're doing, all right? And why don't they realize it? Because nobody's ever stopped to explain it to them. And I think it is up to us who are a little bit more aware. None of us is perfect, including yours truly. None of us is perfect, but I do believe that we are the problem. Because we don't stop and say to people, oops, excuse me a second, I think you just tried to lay a guilt trip on me. Or you just tried to invalidate what I told you. And that hurt me. But I do believe, Jonas, that we do it not with necessarily intent of hurting somebody. I think if I look at what she said, you don't have to tell me my experience was just as bad as yours. What if what she meant to say was, oh, I feel for you. I have had similar things happen. Would that have changed the way that you heard it? Because to me, oh, and then she said, and yes, well, I thought you told me this story before. Maybe you did. And so I understand that. So how would I, how would I get back on that one, which is, oh, so what I would do, Jonas, is be aware this is not a safe person for you to be telling your truth to. Right? Because they don't want to deal with that sort of stuff. But I would also, if you get a chance, talk to her about how would she like you to deal with it when she repeats a story that you've heard before. Does she want to be told, or would she prefer that you are, polite enough to let her tell it a second time in case there's a different spin on it? That is wonderful communication. Jonas is saying, yes, I did tell her how I felt, and I made sure and that I understood that it was not her intent to hurt me. Yes, we are the ones that get hurt. Well, hi, Princess Pink Heart. What a pleasure to see you. And it's always a pleasure to see you. I know, are you the ones in Singapore? I always love it when we get these. Well, Jonas is saying that the person saying these things is her girlfriend. So you have a wonderful opportunity, Jonas, with your skill and your knowledge to be able to help her. You're in Canada. Well, we always love it when the Canucks come into play. Thank you so much. Is there anything you'd like to talk about today, Princess, seeing as you're in here? And welcome. We always welcome new people popping in and saying hello. And give us a rough idea of how old you are. You're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, or like me in your 70s. Give us an idea so we can let you know. So the other thing that was quite exciting to me this week was that I heard from the flooring people, not only the people doing the bathroom, but and the paint, but also the flooring people. And I don't know if you guys know that, but they have to bring all the flooring in and let it sit in the house for a few days to acclimatize to the temperature in the house. They literally have to put it all into the house for 3 or 4 days before they start putting it down. Otherwise, they'll put it down and then it'll warp or shift or do whatever, expand, contract. So what they do is they bring all the flooring in and they put it in the house, and that's going to happen next week. And then they tell me that on the 22nd, they're going to start actually putting the floor down. So they will go in this coming week and rip up what's left of the flooring and get rid of it, and then bring the new flooring in to sit, and then on the 22nd. So by the end of the month, I'm going to have new flooring. So we're getting there pretty fast. How about this quote? Please stop sending men long paragraphs after they hurt you. They don't care, and nothing you say will guilt trip them into caring. Take your dignity and go. Now, I don't know about you, but I wish I'd known that and understood it about 50 years ago. How many of you know that you have guilt-tripped a boyfriend or a girlfriend, a significant other, husband or wife? How many of you know you have done that in the hope that they would love you more, or I don't know, feel guilty about it and change their behavior? I can think of so many times that I wish I had understood that quote, and I'm going to read it again because we never know who's listening. Please stop sending men long paragraphs after they have hurt you. They don't care, and nothing you say will guilt trip them into caring. Take your dignity and go. Now, that doesn't mean, in my view, that you shouldn't tell them it hurt. And how many of us have used a guilt trip in the middle of an argument? The thing that Jody talked about was that you're talking about one thing and suddenly you bring up stuff from the past. I'm pretty sure that we've all done it. So we need to think, why do I do it? And if I understand why I do it, maybe I can understand more about why other people do it. Very important. The most interesting thing to do is when these things happen, to ask yourself, do I do this? Have I ever done it? And why did I do it? If you can think that way, you will have a lot of the answers to why other people do it. And you don't know for sure. And the only way you can know for sure is to check it out. And most people, from my experience, don't have the courage to check it out. They don't have the courage to ask. Isn't that amazing? Why? Because they're scared. They're scared that if they ask, they may upset somebody. And, it's how much of your communication in your life did you not say just because you thought you might upset somebody if you did? See, I just love Jonas's input. He said, it wasn't her fault that I was expecting something different. See, Jonas is very accountable on stuff, which is why I love hearing his input. I was just disappointed because I misunderstood our level of trust when discussing something like trauma. So now I feel more reluctant to open up to her like that. Yes, and that is a discussion that you may want to have, Jonas. How sad that is for you. But, as I said, it's about safe people. And I don't think, again, Jonas, I don't think that people do it intentionally. I think a lot of people do that sort of thing unintentionally. Jody's saying that she's done the guilt trip thing. She said, I've done it and become aware of it. And I try not to do that anymore when I have a disagreement with someone. Yes. And so, when you do it, if you think about it, Jody, and I know that you are capable of great honesty, when you do it, what is your reason for doing it? The one that really triggers me is the one where they say, well, I don't think you should do this, and I've spoken to Fred and he doesn't think you should either. I don't know why that bringing in the other person upsets me so much. It's like, don't you trust your own argument enough? You've got to bring in other people into this argument that are that are not necessary. And I always say, well, I'm glad you've discussed it with Fred, because I discussed it with the man in the moon and he agrees with me. And it's just like, oh, don't be ridiculous. I said, who's being ridiculous here? It's okay if you don't agree with me, that's your right. You don't have to back it up with 16 people. Oh, well, he's a lawyer. Well, hello. Are you saying I'm stupid? Be aware of what you're doing here, people. Yes, and Jody is saying to Jonas, thank you for sharing that. I was going to ask if it changed your feelings about opening up on sensitive subjects. Jonas, I also would say that it is really important that you understand, because I think it is important that you know this, that your level of accountability, your level of self-knowledge is far greater than the average person, from my experience of you. That's why I love it when you pop in and talk to us. All right. So therefore, also have compassion for your girlfriend, that she doesn't have the learning that you have. And maybe it's a wonderful opportunity. It's not your job to be her therapist. I understand that. But what I do believe is that you can help her learn these lessons step by step. And also, it's great experience for you to learn to keep your control under those circumstances. I love the fact that you did discuss it more. That's the important thing. And Jody's saying, I've done it when I don't feel heard or respected, and I resorted to that behavior because of the power struggle. Absolutely, Jody. So therefore, if you know that to be true, you understand, you can turn the mirror and go, do I do this? And if so, why? Then you can, next time you hear that happen, you can say, you know something? I just heard you bring in 6 other points from way back when. And I've done that in my life, and I normally do it because I don't think I'm being heard, or in some way I'm being disrespected. Is that how you felt? Is that why you needed to do that? Ask them, Jody. Because what you're doing is you're taking the ammunition that they shot at you and you are sending it back. So it's like a game of tennis. It's like, don't have the ball come into your court and not return it. All right? Can you think of it like a game of tennis? It is our job to see the ball and then put it back into the other court. All right, and Jonas is saying, yes, I'm a big advocate for personal responsibility. We can't always control what happens, but we can always control our response. Well, is that true? I don't think we always can. I think if you haven't trained in learning how to do that, Jonas, a lot of people can't control it. All right, because they haven't been taught how to control it. So I can look back and say to you in all honesty, as you know, boy, I wish I'd known this when I was 20. But I can also say, Jonas, the chances are that a lot of friends have a problem with you being that responsible. Right? That's my experience, is that when you get that accountable, when you get that honest about stuff, then what happens is, it makes other people uncomfortable. And I've had people, I don't know about you, Jonas, but I've had people say, what happened to you? You used to be such a fun person. How do you like that guilt trip? Um, and I would just say, it's interesting. So the fact that I'm being accountable and asking you to be accountable means that I'm not fun. Okay, I got it. Anyway, Jody is saying, that's a very effective way to handle it because I'm sure it'll come up again at some point. Thank you. Well, I'm just trying to think, Jody, that's how I do things. When people throw things at me, I try to take a split second and think, oh, that hurt. Hang on a second. Why do I do that? And then go back and go, I just need to tell you that was a bit sore for me. How about the one? How about the one where people say that, you're oversensitive? All right, that's a guilt trip, isn't it? Or you're immature. Is that a guilt trip? But what other things like that come up for you? And, I'd like to make sure that we all understand that we're all a work in progress, right? This is not, Jonas, the fact that you have more understanding and more accountability than your girlfriend doesn't make her stupid. What it does is it means that she probably has not been taught how to process this. And so what she comes back with is just an automatic response. Or she's uncomfortable and doesn't know how to say that. Or she is bored because you've repeated the story 5 times and doesn't know how to tell you that one either. So, I think it's a magic opportunity for you to grow the relationship by communicating better on both sides. Now, how many of you can feel what it must have been like for me to receive 64 pages of things that they want to destroy from my house, and I need to sign a piece of paper to say go ahead and do that? It's really difficult because I don't really know what I'm going to be missing until I get home and find out, boy, I'm really going to miss that. But I just need to be, it's not because I'm stupid or not thinking straight. It's about, I just won't know. And so I'm pretty sure that I am also aware that they are going to put a price tag on all that stuff that had to be destroyed and then discount it for age or whatever they do, and then say, okay, we're going to give you $5,000 to cover what we've had to destroy. That's what they do. And so I'm ready for that conversation. But what I do know and what makes me feel stronger inside is they cannot close my file until I have agreed to have it closed. In other words, they can push me and shove me and guilt me and do all sorts of things. But the truth is, I am the client. And until I have signed off on this insurance claim, it's not done. Does that make sense? And I want to explain that to you because what I want you to understand is I am not out of control on this. I actually have the control on this. I am the one, if I don't panic, if I don't get nasty, if I don't fight them back, if I just understand, hey, Sal, whatever they say, you don't have to worry because this is on your time, not theirs. Does that make sense? Jody's saying, when I'm caught off guard, I am terrible at communicating. I think we all are, Jody. I can't think of what I want to say because I'm usually holding back tears of frustration or anger. And I'm normally the peacemaker, but I am human. Absolutely, Jody. And what I've learned, and I want to talk about that, Jody, is you do have the right, and I think you know this, you do have the right to say, I just want to tell you I've been triggered. And I'm going to need to stop the conversation because I don't want to say something that I don't want to say, something I may regret later. And I would do it because I'm in a state of high emotion at the moment. And I would rather take a little bit of time to think about this and maybe discuss it with you in a couple of days. And then the other person goes, no, we got to sort it out right now. No, you don't, Jody. You don't have to sort it out right now. You can control that I choose not to talk about it anymore today because I'm triggered and I'm scared of what I may say in anger. And therefore, as I've said, I'm going to stop this conversation now, but I'll get back to you in a couple of days when I've had time to process it and just get the emotion out of it, and I can deal with the facts, and then I'd like to discuss it again. I will discuss it again. Make sure you know that. Jonas is saying that's true. Sometimes I feel like I do that. I overact still. I still feel the need to remind myself of this, even in retrospect. I like to ask myself, did I choose the correct response there? Take the time to reflect and forget. One of the things I learned about when I was a professional speaker, Jonas, was I gave some of the best speeches in the world. My problem was they were in the car driving home from the speech I'd just given. Because what I always did when I was driving back, if I was driving back or if I was sitting on an airplane or whatever, I would then deconstruct the speech and go, what did I do right? What did I need improvement on? And I used to think of the greatest lines, and it was after I'd done the speech. And so what I learned to do, and I used to do this, if I was in the car, I'd put the tape recorder on. You remember when we had tape recorders in the car? I'd put the tape recorder on and I'd actually talk into the tape recorder while I was driving, because I realized there were certain things that I could change and wanted to. And so that way I could change the speech for next time. So I think we're all Monday morning quarterbacks, right? We all get into situations and then think that wasn't my best behavior. And that's life. And it's okay to not be perfect. And I think it's wonderful if you can go and take the time. That shows that you have a level of emotional intelligence when you can go, I don't think I did that very well. Let me think of a better way of doing that. And maybe you phone them back and say, I'd just like to apologize for what I said. What I really meant to say was that I was frustrated and hurt, and I didn't tell you that. Instead, I attacked you, and I am sorry for that. Jody's saying Lyle and I had an experience a few months ago where he phoned a family member to discuss a problem. And within 3 minutes of speaking, the other person took over the conversation by yelling nonstop. There was zero resolution to the issue. Yeah, I think we all know that problem. And Jonas is saying, and I was unmedicated for a while. So I did have an anxiety disorder of which I am being properly treated now. So I make sure to forgive myself. Yes, I'm a great believer in, it's okay to not be perfect, right? And in fact, that was the speech I gave most often when I was a professional speaker, which was, you don't have to be perfect. Because it was the one thing I was an expert at, not being perfect, right? And so you look at it and you go, I believe that everything in life is a lesson. If you want it, I believe every television program you watch has a lesson in it, if you care to watch for it. Makes sense. I just think that life is a big learning stage, and it's up to us to value that. Now, I thought I'd give you a couple of words around things. Do any of you get triggered when people come around unannounced? And, maybe you grew up being told that it was good manners to always, let people know that you were going to be visiting them beforehand. And other people grew up in families where, they just popped in whenever they were in the neighborhood. And so it's a difficult one because who is right on this one? Who needs to change the behavior? So let me get your input on that. In the meantime, Jonas is saying, and now I have a better understanding of what others who suffer from anxiety are going through. Yep. Sometimes your body goes into panic mode, and there's not always something you can do to get ahead of. Totally agree with you. I think when we bother to understand what's happening to us, it's amazing how different it feels. I can assure you that I am putting in now 3/4 of an hour a day of exercise into my day. And I am only now beginning to see a very small shift in my weight. So what I realized was I was doing half an hour, and I did half an hour a day for 3 months, but it wasn't shifting my weight. So what do I know? What I know is I need to do more. I may not like it, but I need to do more. So what I did, instead of beating up on myself, what I said was, we now know that 5,000 steps a day is not going to shift your weight. If you want to shift your weight, you're either going to have to dramatically change what you're eating, or you're going to have to put in more steps. Make sense? So I'm not blaming anybody else. It's not about blame. It's about facts. The facts are, I have got 3 months of history that says this did not change my weight. It might have made me healthier, and definitely my stamina is better, because I can walk now, a very fast walk inside for nonstop for half an hour, which I couldn't have done 3 months ago. All right, so Jody's saying, I cannot tolerate surprise visitors. We've asked our family and friends, please do not do that, as it creates anxiety. It may not be one of my good days when they decide to drop by, and it's stressful. Yep. So I thought I'd give you guys some words around that in case it happens to you. I think it's really important that we acknowledge it's okay for you to come visit me. I just want you to know that. But it's not okay for you to come unannounced. It is my strong preference that I'm asking you to respect. And now, I've got friends who, that will answer me back, or did, and say, well, that's not very spontaneous of you. Another guilt trip. Another guilt trip. And I go, no, you're right. I'm not very spontaneous about people coming to visit. I like to have warning. I love you dearly, don't get me wrong, but, and I think some of you know, it happened to Benji once early on in the days when I knew Benji. And I literally didn't let him in the front door. And it's like, I had to teach him, this is not okay. At least give me a 2-hour window to tell me you're about to visit, something, but don't just, end up on my front door. Because I think that's rude, right? It says that what you're doing is more important than what I'm doing. And I respect the fact that you want to do that, but as long as you understand, I'm not letting you in the house if you do that. And Jonas is saying, I'm so invested in this conversation and I don't want to have to leave it. But unfortunately, I have a class to go to right now. So we love you, Jonas. Thank you for all that you shared. It's always a pleasure to get your input, as I said. And now, what about this one? People who say to you, we have to sort this out now. Right? I've had people in my life that have done that with me. And what I say to people is, hey, it's okay for you to disagree with me, and I can hear that's going on. But it's not okay for you to yell at me or curse at me or talk over me or push your point of view without even listening to mine. And that's what I feel is happening at the moment. That we're not listening to two sides. Now, I also know that I do that to other people. Have you ever done that? I'm sure you have. And so what I will say is, and I know that I do that when I don't feel I'm being heard properly. So what I want to do is, because I'm triggered and I'm now emotionally, triggered at the moment, I need some time to get rid of the emotion. So again, what I'd like to do is come back and talk to you about this when I've calmed down a bit. No, we don't need to talk about it now. You need to talk about it now. I don't. And that's why I'm going to be leaving this conversation. I want to talk to you about it. Don't get me wrong. And as soon as I've calmed down and I feel in control again, and I don't feel like I'm going to attack you, because I don't want to do that. I love you dearly. I will, make a time when we can get together. How about, do any of you have a problem with people who think you want them to fix everything, right? Even if you don't ask for help, they're always giving it. I'm bad at that. I help people a lot. And so it's by nature. If you are what I call that sort of person where I like solving problems, but I also know it's not necessarily a good thing. And sometimes I have to stop myself and say, hey, I'm trying to fix something without you asking me to. Did you really want my help? I try to make sure that that I am accountable for my automatic reaction. And so what I have to remember, sometimes people just need to vent. They don't necessarily need an answer. Do any of you relate to that one? And I'm guilty of that one, I want to tell you. Now, I'm pretty certain we've all heard the next one. If you loved me, you would fill in whatever. If you loved me, you would. And I don't know about you, but the times in my life when I have heard that, it's nearly always somebody trying to manipulate me to do something I don't want to do. What about you guys? Can you think of times in your life where somebody said to you, well, if you loved me, you would? I can definitely think about hearing it from boyfriends. I don't mind telling you. I'm certain that that hasn't changed. So it's not true. It's not true. The opposite is true. If you love me, you would not ask me to do that. You would respect me. And so part of what I wanted to make sure we talk about today is the difference. When you turn things around, it makes a lot more sense. And that we hold people accountable for what they're actually saying. Because if you loved me, then you would is blackmail. It's emotional blackmail. Hello, Manon. Comment ça va? For those of you who don't know, Manon joins us from France. Manon, did you see the note that I sent you about the turning time into steps? You actually don't need a pedometer if you haven't got one, or a smartwatch. And I'm pretty sure you've got a smartphone. But what you can do is, I think Google Fit, you can just tell them how much time you spent walking and it will convert it for you. Manon saying, if you loved me, you would understand I did that for your good. Yes. Yeah, isn't that true? Hello, pacifist. Long time no see. Big, big hello for you. So think about that. That if you loved me, you would. How about this one? After all I've done for you. How many of you have heard that one? You know, after all the times I did X, Y, and Z, and you've got another guilt trip. I want to tell you something, Ireland's pacifist. It's an absolute pleasure to see you. I'm doing well, and hopefully in the final stages of my house getting renovated and going home. I should be home by April, they think, maybe before. I get a feeling at this pace that they're going, I might be back in late March. So very exciting. Yes, Manon is saying, after all I have done, yes, is one of my mother and grandmother's favorite manipulations. I think, Manon, most parents have used that. And isn't it sad? Because it is a guilt trip. Yes, and passive is saying people saying that is like a pretty manipulative because the other person has most likely been there for them. Yeah, and so what I want you to do is if you hear that, think again, stop for a second. Why would somebody say that to you? All right. Why would somebody feel the necessity to say, if you loved me, you would? And so I think the most important thing you need to say is, I love you to bits, but as I'm an adult, I get to choose and I don't have to do anything. It's my choice. And I choose not to do that at this time. Maybe next week, maybe a year from now. But right now, I choose not to. And yes, I know you have done, after all you've done, I've done for you, that one. I would say, you know something, I know you've done a great deal for me. And I hope in return, I've done a great deal for you. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I had my mother say to me at one time, promise me that before promise me before I die that you will do X, Y, and Z. And I got angry. I said, how can you possibly do that to me? You are asking me like a deathbed request to do something over which I only have 50% control. I do not have control of that situation. I only have 50% control, and therefore I cannot guarantee it, nor can I promise it, nor will I promise it. And I'd like you to take that request back right now. And it was strange because, my mom did a double take and thought about it. And then she said, actually, I understand what you're saying. I'm sorry. Ireland's pacifist is saying, my ex used to try to get me to fight against other women she didn't like. And if I didn't do it, I fancied them, apparently. Yeah. But that's very transparent manipulation, and I didn't fall for it. Did you? Something I had, my mother used to, and I'm sad to say this about my mother, but my mother would ask me to, she would say that she would go to different things. And then the day of the event, she would say to me, oh, could you phone them and tell them that I'm not coming? And, I used to fall for that as a child for the longest time. And then one day I just said, Mom, I think that's for you to phone them and tell them that you're not coming. That is not my job, to be your liar. And I literally use those words. It is not my job to lie for you. That is your job. And the funny thing is that the day that I said that, there was a lot of tension in the household. But I set a boundary and basically told her, I'm not going to lie for you. anymore. Yeah, and Spencer is saying that happened in my family too. Yes. So I think that the problem is we don't have the words for it. Oh, and I love this quote. It said, "I don't have an attitude problem. You have a problem with my attitude, and that's your problem." Do you all agree? That if somebody else has got a problem with who you are, that is their problem, not yours. Yeah, I thought it was good too. I like that one. And I'm going, gosh, I wish I'd known that earlier on in my life, right? This is who I am. Right, so Manon is saying, I'm taking notes, and you said also one day you choose to do this. I did not force you to do it, yes. I love that it's not conditioned when you love someone and you do something for them. Don't expect, you see, this is the whole, don't expect them to have to do something in return. But, I used to do that, Manon. I don't mind telling you. I used to be very manipulative in my relationships. A lot of it based on insecurity. But now I can remember having a really big argument with somebody one day because what I thought they were doing was totally wrong. And you know me, I told them that. But I finished, after I got angry, and I did, I said, I just want you to understand something. This is your life. What you choose to do is totally up to you. And I'm going to go away and try and regroup and get my ducks in a row because I want you to know I love you dearly. And I respect the fact that you make your own decisions for your life. The fact I don't like them is my problem, not yours. But I did make sure that they knew why I didn't like what they were doing. But it didn't mean they had to change. Does that make sense to everybody? And, I can remember, that it's like, to me, it was a really important relationship. And we have to remember that somewhere, we don't have to, you may choose to remember that there are times when you have to decide, is the relationship more important than being right? And, to me, it's like, hey, this is your life. If you want to do X, Y, and Z, that is your business. I don't have to like it, nor do I have to put up with it. I had somebody that I knew that told me one day that they thought they were going to be doing something illegal. And I said, well, I just want to tell you something. You know me pretty well, and I'm a pretty straight person. So I just want to tell you, if you do decide to do that, that's your right. But I just need to tell you, I'm not going to be a friend while you do that. Now, if ever you want to cross the line back again, then I will be there for you. But I cannot support you in doing something that's illegal. Now, is that a guilt trip? Think about that. But, I believe that we need to set better boundaries for people so they know when I'm dealing with Sal, I don't get to do this. Or how about the person that's constant? I have this a lot, being a YouTuber. People prying into areas of my life that's really none of their business, okay? So I understand that people want to get curious. So people will say to me, can I ask you a question? And in my mind, I always say yes, but I don't necessarily have to answer it. You know what I mean? And so I will let them ask the question. But if I think that is something that maybe I would discuss with Jody, who I know very well, and I know I can trust her integrity and not to repeat things and But somebody I don't know, it's none of my business. I don't have to please them. And if they say, but I'm a viewer, guilt trip. And I go, yes, And I'm an adult that chooses not to discuss that sort of thing with people I don't know. But I've been a viewer for 5 years. Yep, I still don't know you, is what I know. So therefore, why would I discuss it? And yet, I discuss, so many things openly. But you'll be amazed the things that people ask me. So what I want us all to understand Manon has a really wicked sense of humor. And she goes, if what that other person was doing was murder and they were covering for it, and you didn't have a freezer big enough to take the body, that's a values thing. Yeah. And, as pacifists are saying, I can relate to that. There are people who come onto my stream on Twitch and they say, I'm a subscriber, give me mods, or, exactly. And you go, it's amazing how arrogant people can be. Am I right, pacifists? It's amazing how arrogant they can be because they think just because they deserve X, Y, and Z. And so, part of having self-esteem is to be able to say, I know you feel that way, but unfortunately I get to choose, and I choose not to share that. How about this one? Putting people down does not make you a powerful and strong person. It makes you a bully, a coward, and eventually alone in your old age. So, have you ever had that, well, because you don't agree with me, now I'm going to punish you, all right, and put you down and do things like that? Well, pacifists are saying, I'd rather be a mod for myself. A mod is a moderator, in case you don't know. A mod for myself, because in the past I had mods fight each other, and then I have to pick a side. But if I'm the only mod, then they know why they were banned, because I banned them. Yes. And so, to me, I've had, it happen where somebody muted somebody for a while. And, it was always with good intent, though, pacifist. When I talked to them about it, they always said, but they were being nasty to you. And I have to remind people, some of the best viewers I ever had and still are friends of mine today are people that came in to originally troll me. And so therefore, not all trolls are necessarily bad people. They just, that day decided to troll something. And what I found, though, the interesting thing I found, pacifist, is that that's why I do my streaming on YouTube. Because anything gets at all strange on YouTube, YouTube sorts it out. I don't have to. So I think any of you who have been my mods will agree that it's a lot easier to moderate on YouTube because most of the stuff doesn't come through. Now, this one came up for me this week, and I wondered how you feel about that. Whatever your restrictions are where you live on the COVID situation, I had somebody say to me this week, well, maybe we can just get together and, and I said, no, I'm not allowed to, under the restrictions, I'm only allowed to see one household. As I live on my own, I'm allowed to visit one household, and you're not it. And they said, well, they'll never find out. And if they fine you, I'll pay the fine. How do you guys feel about that? Yeah, that's why I stopped broadcasting on Vaughan as well, pacifist. We wasted so much time dealing with trolls. It just wasn't worth it to me. Yeah, and the same with Tiny Chat. And, you know, I think it's fine if you run the sort of show that's into that. But we're into teaching people stuff, and to have that constant disruption just was a waste of time for me. Yes, and Jody is saying it is the mod's job to follow the wishes of the channel owner, not the mod by their own wishes and whims. Yeah, there we go. So there. um, So, you know, you look at it, I'm not sure I understand the word that you're trying to say there, pacifist, and I can't make sense of it because I don't understand what that word is. So say it another way so I can understand. So how do you feel about that? That somebody is trying to see me and they want me to break the curfew stuff, the pandemic rules, so that they can see me. And, you know, if you think about it, it's really quite loving, isn't it? They want to see me that badly. And I chose to see that as an act of love. And I said to them, hey, I totally hear you, and I love it that you're prepared to pay a fine, but I choose not to break the curfew. I choose not to do it because I really believe that I want to be part of the reason why we get rid of this pandemic, not part of the reason why we keep spreading it. Yeah, and you know, it's interesting, pacifist, what you speak. I can remember somebody coming into my cast one day and saying, "You really need to go visit this particular channel." And I go, "Why?" And they say, "Because they're talking dirt about you." And I laughed and I said, "Why would I go there? Not my problem." Can you understand that I am confident enough in myself that I do not need to go and protect myself or justify myself to a bunch of people who get their jollies out of maligning me? All right? I'm not interested. Why would I waste my time? You know, it's just like, and I just literally said, why would I go there? Well, because they're saying terrible things about you. I said, let them. Some people do that. People who know me know it's not true, so I don't need to worry. All right, so Ireland's pacifist is saying it probably was that blog. I would normally not care, but they got me fired from jobs, putting my full name and address. You know, if somebody did that, I would put lawyers onto them. I'm sorry. I had somebody threaten my life once. And I literally came off, I took a screenshot of it and I came off the broadcast and immediately went to the cop shop, you know, with my phone. And I said, I just want to say that somebody threatened my life and this is thing. Because it's, you know, you don't get to do that. But what happens is the reason that so many people have so much fun spreading these false rumors and things on social media is because nobody does anything about it, I think. Yes, and you know, I agree with you. Pacifists are saying, and when I went to police, and well done for doing that, they were so useless. They said it was probably an ex-girlfriend. But when you tell them, I just want you to know, I heard what you said, I took a screenshot, and I'm now taking that to the police, it gives them a wake-up call. You just threatened my life, and threatening my life is a federal offense. And I just want to tell you that, you know, you better make sure you don't threaten too many people's lives because there's going to be a record of you having done it before. I am going to file that record. And I had that person who threatened my life come back to me and say, how could you possibly report me to the police? Da, 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 da. And I said, because you threatened my life. Quite simple. You don't get to do that with me. Or the person who said that my nails were fake. I said to them, you keep saying that to people, you'll be talking to my lawyer on a defamation thing. And that costs a lot of money. So I hope you've got a lot of money, because you either can choose to let me go and stop maligning me or deal with my lawyer. It's up to you. Okay, good to see you, pacifist. And come back and see us again. Happy Valentine's weekend. How about, I had a guest, and some of you might have heard this story before, but I think it's worth telling again. I had a guest who came to visit me, stayed in my spare room, and then the next day, when we were busy chatting, told me something that made me realize they had gone through the drawers in my spare room. And I said, are you telling me that information because you found that in one of the drawers in my spare room? Well, yeah. I said, you don't see that as something that's not a good thing to do? Well, it's your spare room, and if you let me sleep in it, I'm entitled to look through the drawers. I went, really? And, I just said, that is not how I was brought up. And I need to tell you, because I now know that of you. Thank you for telling me the truth. I will not be inviting you to stay in the spare room again. Just like, it's just, I don't know about you, but if I visit somebody's house and I've got the spare room, Manon saying, what? That's weird to look in the drawers. Love your sense of humor. But Manon, it's like, it is, and most people will say to you, and if you need some drawers, I've emptied these for you, but the rest of them are off limits, people, right? Or how about the people who visit somebody else's bathroom and change the way the toilet paper is? It's just like, really? Talk about control, people. Yes, and exactly, Jodi's saying, and they probably look in the medicine cabinet as well. Exactly. And so it's the same thing. When I have a guest bathroom, and I will open up the drawer and go, hey, if you need to put anything in a drawer, this is the drawer. In other words, stay away from the others. But apparently not. But what you learn is this is not a safe person. And how about, what do you say to somebody who thinks it's okay to go through your purse, or maybe your phone, or anything like that? The snooper. Manon is saying, I have to admit, I've done the toilet paper thing. Well, but only in her own house, not in somebody else's. Yeah, I think if somebody has changed it in my house, I have the right to change it back again. No doubt about that. It's my house. So just as we sort of go into this, I found a few more of these guilt words that I want to make sure that we all have. How do you like the one that we should respect our elders? Do you agree that that is a guilt word? That is a guilt trip. We should. That's the clue. Should. We should respect our elders. How many of you are going, no, not necessarily so? And it is our job to only respect people who deserve our respect, is my belief. And so therefore, just because you're older, as an adult, I don't have to respect you if you have proven to be otherwise. Right. And Manon saying, I had a friend who used to want to look at my phone, and when I had a password, he was like, what are you trying to hide? Yeah. And so, Manon, you know how you felt with that. And do you understand what are you trying to hide? That is the guilt trip, right? When you hear that sort of wording. Manon saying, can you send the response to the elders one to my grandma's house? Yes, we were taught, and I think the answer to that is, as an adult, I would laugh and say, you know something? As a child, I totally agreed with it. As an adult, I have to tell you, when people earn my respect, I will give it to them, regardless of their age. I've given more respect to children than I have some adults as an adult. And Manon, you now have enough self esteem to know that it's okay for you to have some privacy and that you don't have to give up your password to any boyfriend that chooses to want to look into what you're doing. None of their business. How about, have any of you had the manipulation of there is nothing more important than family? Do you understand that that is a guilt trip? All right, so listen to this one. This is what I call respect with a capital R. Jody is saying, if Lionel needs our credit card, he hands me my purse. He won't even look in my wallet when I ask him to. He's well trained. I quite agree. I absolutely agree. I have literally had Doug or even Benji in my home, and I needed something, and I'll say, could you just do me a favor and grab my purse? And, you'll find the coin thing, whatever. I will instruct them. But if I ever caught you doing that without permission, that is a totally. All right, Manon saying, why are you reading my grandmother's rule book today? Well, here's another one. How about mothers are always right? No, they're not. As a child, maybe, but as an adult, and that's what I would say to them. Hey, I understand you're my mother. I understand that you are very wise on a lot of things. But as a child, I needed to agree with you because you were my security. As an adult, I have to say it has been my experience that you're not always right. And I love the fact you're so human. How about this one? I can't stand it when you're mad at me. Is that a guilt trip? It's their problem, not yours. And that's where we need to say, hey, I'm sorry that you can't stand it when I'm mad at you. Maybe it is time for you to ask me why I am so mad. But most people, from my experience, cannot handle conflict. Most people cannot get into a situation where they disagree with one another because they think that disagreeing means you don't love them. I would remind you that some of my best relationships are with people I can argue with, people I can have a great debate with. And I don't have to agree with them. That's what I love about them. But what I will say is, I hear you. Now you explain to me why you believe that. I need to understand that. And then shut up and let them explain it to me. And then at the end of it, 9 times out of 10, well, I've heard your reasoning and I still don't agree with you, but I agree to disagree. That's it. Or how about the fact that you're an assertive so-and-so, so therefore you need to calm down a bit. Guilt trip. It's your problem, not mine. Yes, I'm assertive. Yes, I have a big mouth and opinions. Always have had, always will have. You don't like that? Not my problem. It's your problem. Now, if you want to discuss it with me, tell me that. How many of you, as children, were told little girls should be seen and not heard? I think that's a manipulation. Exactly. Jody is saying this thing about I can't stand it when you're mad at me is more about making the guilty person feel better. Yeah, has very little benefit to the one who's angry. I also can remember hearing once that one of the most unfair weapons that women use is tears. I can remember a boyfriend telling me that once. And I actually thought about that and said, let me just think through that a little bit. And, ever since I heard that discussion, if I get into a situation with a man and they frustrate me so much that I start to cry, I actually apologize for that. I say, I'm sorry I'm crying, but I want to tell you I am that frustrated. And I have been taught as a woman, and I am trying to correct that, taught as a woman not to tell my truth. I'm meant to be sugar and spice and all things nice. There's another big guilt trip. And I'm not. I'm angry and I'm frustrated with what you just said. And I'm really so frustrated that I'm holding it back so much that I'm crying. Well, tell me what you really think. And I will say to them, you really don't want to know what I really think. It's not polite. But I can tell you I'm good and angry. So do you understand that I now realize that it's true? Women, instead of saying what they feel, instead of talking about their feelings, bottle them up and get frustrated and then start to cry. I remember when I had that situation with the movers where I thought they were overcharging me. And then the guy made some comment right in the middle of it. Well, you are a bit of a hoarder. I want to tell you, I changed so quickly because now that's the guilt trip. And I looked at him and I said, you know something? You knew that the day you walked into my house. You knew that the day you gave me the quote. And you are now manipulating, emotionally blackmailing me. That the reason you're charging me so much is because you think I'm a hoarder. Well, hello, that is your right to think what you like. It is not your right to call me names. So do me a favor, back off. I'm putting the phone down. Call me back when you can treat me like an adult. And I put the phone down. Because I don't put up with that anymore. All right, Manal is saying, I can't stand it. Sometimes I need space when I'm mad. And space, but the other person is playing I can't stand it. And the most of the time I give up to help in my head and for the other person to feel better. And see, that's the whole thing, Manal, that I'm trying to tell you that is not good communication. Unless you're going, I don't need to be right on this one, right? If you make that decision inside yourself, and just go, you know something, I'm going to fight my battles. I don't need to be right on everything. And I'm just going to let this one go. Then you can say, hey, I don't agree with you, but I'm prepared to let it go. Let's move on. But when you shut up because you have some level of fear that they won't love you anymore, or that, then that is the whole thing. That I believe we fall into the trap. And I am encouraging you not to fall into the trap. Manal's saying, I need space to process when that happens. And that is, I quite agree with you that we all need space to process things. So when you get triggered, when you can feel you're beginning to lose control, you're beginning to want to cry, you're beginning to get angry, that's when you need to stop the conversation and go, you know something? I'm getting triggered now. I choose not to continue. So I'm hoping that today we have talked enough about this, whose problem is it? And that is what I want you to think about. When somebody is angry at you, whose problem is it? It's not your problem. It's not your job to calm them down. It is their job. When somebody says, if you loved me, you would, I would say, I love you enough to tell you that that is emotional blackmail and I'm not buying it. I love you enough to tell you the truth. The thing is, Manon, that when you say to people, your anger is your problem, it is not for me to change what I'm doing, they don't like that. So think about that. When somebody calls you on your stuff, it doesn't feel good. But what I find is when somebody loves me enough to tell me that truth, I'm inclined to go away and think about it a bit. But I'm that sort of a person. And I say to myself, is there any truth in what they're saying? And if they're, well, yeah, then I need to apologize. But not everybody does. And that is why I keep trying to have this conversation with us, that we keep growing this emotional intelligence about the reason we have so much stress in our lives is we take on so much of other people's stuff. And we don't need to. We don't need to take it on. We take it on because we want to make them feel better. Not your job to make them feel better. It is not your job to make them feel loved. It is not your job to make them happy. It is not your job to pay their bills. It is not your job. You understand? It's like people manipulate you all the time. And what they do is they manipulate you into doing things that they don't want to do. I cannot possibly change my blood sugar or my weight unless I do the work. And I'm doing the work and it's still not working. But you know something? That doesn't mean what I'm doing is wrong. It means I need to do more. And so I look at it and go, if you are not accountable for your own stuff, how can you help other people be accountable for theirs? It was one of the first things I can remember talking to Jody about when I met Jody, was, boy, was she good about pleasing everybody except herself. And it was just like, I can remember privately having the biggest conversation with her about why was she turning herself into this emotional pretzel to please people, because I didn't understand it. And I can remember, and Jody will tell you, I can remember one day having a really important decision to make. And I said, Jody, I can't ask you this question because you'll agree with me. You are that loyal. And, in that day, I told her that, it's really important for you not to agree with me when you don't. And it's okay. Right? It's okay not to agree with me. And Manon, if I think about the difference you've made in my life, I'm sitting here and, I'm almost guilting myself out every time I buy, oil and vinegar. If I can't afford the best that there is, I'm going, I hope Manon doesn't see this. She will not be happy. And what helped Jody not be a people pleaser? When she realized she was entitled to her own opinion, she did not have to calm everybody else down. She did not have to do the work other people needed to do for themselves. And so one of the things, Manon, that I would recommend when people are saying, well, I want to tell you, I'm really angry at you. And then just to smile and say, hey, I'm so sorry you're angry. I'm fine, but I'm sorry you're angry. It's like, I'm not taking it on. I am not going to try and convince you. You know what I found out, Manon? If people want to believe I'm a bad person, let them. Okay? If that's what you want to believe of me, go right ahead. It doesn't have to change my day. If you want to believe that I'm useless because I'm an old fart, you go right ahead. Okay? I don't need to waste my energy trying to convince you otherwise. And now Jody's saying, I now know it's okay to have a difference of opinion with respect, if that ever happens. Yeah. And so this is the whole thing with me, right? But, Jody, it's like, I would, if you always agreed, then do you understand that puts up a question mark? Are we twins, peas in a pod, or are you doing it just because you want to be kind? And that's who you are. So I don't ask you to change, but I want you to know it's okay to disagree. And I say this to people all the time. Yeah, and vinegar. I do buy the Moderna vinegar, though. And the joke is, Manon, when I make my oil and vinegar for my salads, I actually throw in some apple cider vinegar because I know that's also good for me. But I'm going, don't let Manon see that I'm mixing these vinegars. She will not be happy. And I guess the question is, does the Moderna type vinegar have the same health benefits as apple cider vinegar? And so what this is about is, do you understand that what this is about is my job is to keep my stress level down. My job is to not take on other people's guilt trips. My job is to stay as peaceful as I can, being who I am and being okay with that. I might have somebody say to me, oh, but you da-da-da-da. And I go, you know something? And a little bit I agree with you. But on the whole, I'm pretty happy with who I am. But thank you for your input. And so I want you all to work really on smiling and going, I'm okay. I'm okay, and people will judge me for the way I look, the way I speak, the way I breathe, the way I do my hair, the clothes I'm wearing. People will judge me. And one of the things I always say to people, if you're thinking about being a YouTuber, do yourself a big favor and grow a very thick skin. And if you are at all sensitive, do not even bother to be a YouTuber. Why? It will destroy you in a heartbeat, because so many people have so many opinions. And they just, my attitude is, if you don't like me, it's fine. If you don't like what I have to say, that's fine. I'm not here for the people. I'm here to help the people that want to learn these things. That's what I'm here for. And it's interesting, Jody's saying, Manon, I think of you every time I use balsamic vinegar. Me too. And olive oil. I only buy the good stuff. You taught us well. Yeah. All right. And Manon is saying, Jody, with moving, I can really feel it on my health. I've been a little bit sick in the past few days, and I know on the way to that stress of moving, plus other people's opinions, I have caused that. Oh, other people's opinions have caused that. All right. No, other people's opinions have not caused it. You taking on that hurt caused that. You want to go, hey, you're entitled to your opinion. And laugh. They are entitled to their opinion. Yeah. So understand, if you let their opinions affect your mental health, that's on you, not on them. Makes sense? They are entitled to their opinion. There are people in the world that think the most terrible things of me. That's their right. I'm not going to be able to convince them. They want to believe that. So why would I waste my energy? I don't anymore. I used to be really upset. But now it's not an issue for me. All right. So be aware of the guilt trips and call them for what they are. You know, when you hear somebody giving you, well, if you love me, you do X, Y, and Z, you go, you know, I consider that to be a guilt trip. So here are the facts. Number one, I love you. Number two, because I love you, I don't need to do X, Y, and Z because I love myself more. So this is DearMamaSal saying, thank you for being here with us. I hope that you learned something. What was the most important part for you? Let me know. And if you're watching on the replay, remember to put something in the comments below. We are really lucky to have wonderful people in our lives. And by the way, I am very guilty of doing guilt trips. I just got to tell you that. I am trying to correct that. I grew up with guilt trips and I learned how to do them, and I learned very well. And what now is I'm working on so hard is how to correct that. Even at my age, how do I correct that? And when I find myself doing it, I try very hard to make the time to say, I'm sorry, I think I guilt tripped you there and I didn't mean to. What I really wanted to tell you was that I loved you. And I just didn't word that very well because you didn't agree with what I had to say. and I know that now, and I'd like to apologize for it. This is DearMamaSal saying, you know, the ability to be able to apologize for something shows great character. Bye-bye for now.